Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's still Screamtober. Hi, I'm Carshénah with Productions, and you don't want to miss, we're doing a video a day, every day up until Halloween. This week is horror video games and horror comics. Let's get started. Let's start today with the horror video game that started it all. Backtracking to the end of the 90s decade was Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill is the first installment in the Silent Hill series of psychological survival horror video games. The game was developed by Team Silent and published by Konami. It was released for the Sony PlayStation in North America on January 31st, 1999, and it was released on the PlayStation Store for PlayStation Portable and PlayStation 3, but not for PlayStation Vita or PlayStation 4. Silent Hill 3 is a sequel set 17 years after the game, while Silent Hill Origins is a prequel taking place 7 years prior to the game. Silent Hill Shattered Memories is a reimagining of the game set in another universe sharing the same game's original premise. The 2006 film Silent Hill is a loose adaptation of the game's characters and plot set in a different universe. The plot? Silent Hill, Maine is a quiet American resort town known for its very peaceful ambiance, but the memories of a tragic house fire 7 years ago in which a girl named Alessa Gillespie died still haunts the town and the townsfolk. Having had his wife Jody die of disease 4 years ago, Harry Mason is a single parent with an adopted daughter named Cheryl. Harry is still in grief from Jody's death, and to help his mental state, Cheryl begs him to take a relaxing vacation to the resort town of Silent Hill, and Harry gives in. Due to car troubles, Harry and Cheryl arrive in the outskirts of Silent Hill at night, following the winding mountainside road. While driving on the outskirts of the town, Harry sees a girl, which is an astral projection, walking across the street. Harry swerves his car to avoid hitting her and is knocked unconscious by the resulting car crash. Harry wakes up later to find that Cheryl had disappeared and is forced to venture into the snowing, fog-covered town to rescue her. At first glance, Harry notes that the entire place, or at least old Silent Hill, seems to be abandoned. Harry leaves the area to look around and sees Cheryl running away, and he immediately hurries to follow her. Chasing her through the streets of Silent Hill, he finds himself running down a small residential road and into a dark alley. The sky suddenly turns dark. A siren blares in the distance, and when Harry lights the area with a lighter, he finds that his entire environment has altered into a darker realm. The road pavement has been replaced by rusted metal grating and platforms, and the walls are a dark, grimy series of mesh and chain-link fences. Everything is covered in rust and blood, tipped with barbed wire, and the shapes of hanging bodies are discernible behind the mesh. The sounds of industrial clanking and grinding metal form a constant cacophony of ambient noise. Now, the gameplay. The objective of the player is to guide Harry Mason through the barren town of Silent Hill as he searches for Cheryl. The gameplay consists of combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. The controller vibration is used to indicate Harry's heartbeat and will vibrate on low health. The game uses tank controls where the player must imagine they are controlling Harry as a tank. Harry can jump backward if the player holds square and down. Due to the mandatory tank controls, it is essential that the player learns how to shoot and walk back at the same time. The player must regularly enter an inventory screen to check Harry's health, use items, and equip different weapons. Harry confronts monsters in each area with both melee weapons and firearms. A portable radio alerts Harry to the presence of nearby creatures with bursts of static. Harry's flashlight illuminates dark areas, but when it is switched off, he has a greater chance of eluding enemies. Silent Hill was the first fully 3D third-person survival horror video game. In contrast, Resident Evil and Alone in the Dark used pre-rendered backgrounds, whereas Clock Tower was in 2.5D and had a point-and-click interface. System Shock was played from a first-person perspective, making Silent Hill a pioneer of a 3D third-person format. While today's standards generally date them, the graphics of Silent Hill were praised for its time, showcasing the power of the Sony PlayStation. Fog and darkness were heavily used to disguise the limitations of the hardware. Along with the grainy and pixelated textures, also from hardware limitations, most reviewers felt that these factors worked in the game's favor. The game was also commended for its use of the dual shocks vibration feature on the controller, which reviewers commented added to the immersive quality of the game. The game's use of lighting and sound were also applauded for their tension-building quality. Less well-received was the voice acting, which was found average overall by reviewers and accompanied by long pauses between lines that served to spoil the atmosphere. Some reviewers also took issue with the vague story, which left many questions unanswered, and due to the multiple endings, failed to provide any real closure. The tank controls and camera angles were also criticized for being clunky. But back in 1999, this was the game to beat. Moving on to Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 is the second installment in the Silent Hill survival horror series and the first game of the series to be released for Sony PlayStation 2. The game was developed by Team Silent and published by Konami. It launched in North America on September 24, 2001. A more definitive version of the game, Silent Hill 2 Restless Dreams, was re-released with new features on the PlayStation 2 as the greatest hits title and ported to the Xbox and PC. It is known as Silent Hill 2 Saigo no Uta, the final song in Japan, and in Europe, Silent Hill 2 Interferes on Xbox and Silent Hill 2 Director's Cut on PC and PS2. It features an additional UFO ending, a new scenario called Born from a Wish, better graphics and lighting effects, and exclusive to the PC version, the ability to save anywhere, swap weapons without opening a menu, and a movie gallery. It was later re-released in high-definition resolution with optional new voices along with Silent Hill 3 for the Silent Hill Collection on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. The plot. James Sunderland has arrived in the town of Silent Hill, Maine, after receiving a letter from his wife Mary, despite the fact that she suffered a chronic disease and died 3 years prior. The letter claims that Mary is waiting for James in their special place, which confuses James, as the whole town of Silent Hill was their special place. Despite James wondering if the letter is a prank by someone with a twisted sense of humor, he notes that the letter is definitely written in Mary's handwriting, and the author is aware James once made a promise to return to Silent Hill with Mary and that he never fulfilled his promise. When James reaches Silent Hill, he discovers that it is not the same beautiful town it was a few years ago. In addition to the bizarre, omnipresent fog, the whole town seems to be rotting away and abandoned. Macabre, vaguely humanoid creatures are roaming the streets and attempting to attack James whenever possible. When he discovers that the path to his first destination, the lakeside Rosewater Park, is blocked, James decides to pass through an apartment complex to reach what he believes could be the special place Mary mentioned in her letter. The final version of the game has a total of 6 possible endings, 3 of which can be achieved on the first playthrough: Leave, In Water, Maria, and 3 others: Rebirth, Dog, UFO, enabled by acquiring new items in replays. The UFO ending doesn't appear in the original PlayStation 2 release, which had a black label, whereas the Greatest Hits version had a red label. Now, the gameplay in Silent Hill 2 is almost identical to the first game, which includes exploring Silent Hill with a flashlight and radio while defeating monsters and solving puzzles along the way. Many of the environments are dark, and the flashlight is often the only source of light. The radio James receives detects monsters when they are nearby by emitting static and notifying the player of their presence. James will find many helpful items on his journey, and without collecting specific items, the player cannot progress through the game. If James takes too much damage from an enemy, he will die, leading to a game over screen. Here are some fun facts about Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 also references real-life events. The creators have said that the name Mary came from Mary Ann Nichols and Mary Jane Kelly, Jack the Ripper's first and last victims, respectively. Other observers have claimed that Maria's outfit was copied from singer Christina Aguilera's appearance at the 1999 Teen Choice Awards. Eddie Dombrowski's name was taken from actor Eddie Murphy back during the beginning phases of production, when Eddie was originally designed with a pleasantly optimistic personality. The name of Angela Orozco was derived from Angela Bennett, the protagonist of the film The Net. There are also indications that the layout of Silent Hill has been based on the town of San Bruno, California to a certain extent. Now, reaction to the game was generally favorable. Many praised the game's graphics, especially at the time compared to other video games, which were a major improvement over the first game, with more polygons, realistic lighting and CGI, and more detailed textures, environments, and facial animation. Although Silent Hill 2 isn't a direct sequel to the first game, there are several references to it, including the mention of Old Silent Hill, a notepad similar in appearance to the save point for Harry. Harry has a cameo in the game's UFO ending, and Lakeside Amusement Park is also referenced. The plot is based on Fyodor Dostoevsky's novel Crime and Punishment. Like Silent Hill 2 had some things changed or edited due to graphic violence and/or nausea-inducing scenes in the game. Silent Hill 2 is often called one of the greatest works of art in the survival horror video game medium. Many players consider Silent Hill 2 to be the magnum opus of the Silent Hill series. The deep, emotional, provocative, psychological storyline, atmosphere, and music was well praised. The story touches on some mature, taboo, and controversial subjects, which was largely unheard of around 2001, although it tries to do so in a mature fashion, pushing the bar for survival horror games as well as storytelling and art direction in video games. I hope that you've been enjoying SCREAMTOBER right here on the channel. I'm Carshénah with versefilmsproductions, so hit that notification bell as we do a video a day, every day, up until Halloween. We hope to see you at the next one. Take care and have a great scare.